So good evening, everybody. Good afternoon. Maybe we can try to get started. I think there's a few people still trickling in. So thank you for coming and a very, very warm welcome to the Department of Applied Psychology and Human Development and to our 2013 information session. It's wonderful to see so many of you who are interested in our programs, and we look forward to not just seeing you, but having your applications come soon. We really are very pleased to see that so many of you are here. My name is Lana Sturmack, and I'm the acting chair of the department for this year. So again, I hope to see you throughout the year when you make your applications. So my role this evening is to welcome you to the department, to provide the beginning of an overview of our department, as well as to discuss the agenda for this evening. So I'm going to begin with that. The first part of our program will be all together here. I'm going to introduce you to the department programs and the faculty and the staff. Each program coordinator will make a brief introduction to each of the programs and the people who work in them, the research interests, and all of the wonderful, and where they're located, because we're not all located within the same area. Following that, while we're still together, there will be representatives from the registrar's office who will present some general registrarial information that's of interest to everyone applying to our department. Followed by some questions and answers that again pertain to the entire group. And then we will, following this, we're going to ask you to relocate. So we're going to go to breakout sessions following this, where there will be discussion of the things that really interest you very specifically, your own interests, the faculty interests, the research interests of the specific program that you will be applying to. So this will give you an opportunity to talk in detail with the faculty, to meet some of the staff, and to be able to ask some of the very specific questions for yourself. During the breakout groups, the representatives from the registrar's office will visit each one of you. So I know that there are specific things you want to know from them about your programs, and they will come in turn to each one of them. Also, our graduate programs and admissions coordinator, who's Lisa Chimchani, I know some of you have already spoken with her and met her. She will also be going to each one of your groups. So you'll get lots of opportunity to ask questions and get the details of what specifically interests you. The locations of the breakout groups are on your flyers. In general, some group will be in here, another one in the library, which is on the same floor as this auditorium. One of you will meet on the 5th floor, and another group will be on the 9th floor. So overall, that is the agenda for this evening. So having said that, I'd like to introduce you to our department overall. As shown here, our department now houses 5 programs, and these are broadly spanning the area of human development, teaching, special education, educational psychology, school and clinical child psychology, clinical psychology, and counseling psychology. All of our programs are outstanding, I would say, super interesting, outstanding, with faculty who are truly leaders in their field, with very active programs of research and exemplary teaching. However, what I think is of most importance to you today is that you will see some overlap in programs that you may not have known about, that will provide opportunity for you should you come here and study with us. We share some courses, we share a lot of interests, and for that reason I think it's best that you get an overview of the entire department as a whole. So I don't want to keep you in further suspense. Having said that, I'd like to introduce our Associate Chair, Marg Schneider. And following that, she will introduce the program chairs.
Welcome, everybody. As Lana said, my name is Marg Schneider, and I'm the Associate Chair of the department. And my realm of responsibility is programming, scheduling, student issues. So I do have a fair amount of contact with students. What is going to happen next is that each program chair is going to come up and do a short description of their own particular programs, just to give you an overview, and it will be in this order. First will be Dale Willows, who's the chair of the CSE program. Then we'll have Roy Moodley and Zindel Siegel from the clinical psychology and the clinical and counseling psychology program. Next will be Michal Perlman from DPE, and lastly, Katrina Scott from the School and Clinical Child Psychology program. I think we've got it. Anyway, and they will just come up one after another. I'm not going to announce them or introduce them. So, Dale?
There's some slides here. Welcome, and I want to tell you a little bit about Child Study and Education, what it is. Our program is an MA program that's located at another building, the Jackman Institute of Child Study, in another location. It's a 2-year professional program in teacher preparation. How many of you here are interested in pre-service teacher preparation with a master's degree? How many people are here that have that interest? Good, good, and we'll hopefully see more of you later. This is a program in which the students both get a background in research and study of the child and developmentally appropriate practice, evidence-based approaches, and so on. And they participate with other students in the other programs in a number of electives, so that although they're in a teacher preparation program, it's an MA program in which they get both elementary teacher preparation and the MA degree, and they have an opportunity to take courses in other sections of the department and other parts of OISE. And there are a number of faculty. I won't go, and I'll just put some pictures up, and it will make a point, because as you go through the other presentations, you'll see some of the same faces, because there's a really close collaboration across programs, and so many of the same people are involved in different programs. So I'll just quickly go through. We have people that are specializing in special education, people specializing in the early years, in technology, science, and various aspects of developmental psychology. And we have a really deep understanding of developmental psychology because some of our members have young children. And we have a wonderful support staff and a team who supports us in practicum placements in the schools. And we also have a laboratory school as part of the Jackman Institute of Child Study. Is a wonderful marriage of practice, which is actually in a school where we have our courses. And so this is laboratory school staff, and there's our building, which is a 10-minute walk from here, and anyone who wants to come and visit us will be most welcome to learn more about our setting. I'll look forward to seeing you on the 5th floor after during the breakouts, and I think we're in 280. It's on your sheet anyway, on the 5th floor. Thank you.
Hi, that's me. That's my twin. I want to welcome you to Counseling and Clinical Psychology and Counseling Psychology. There are 3 of us, although there's only me there. I will introduce you to my 2 other colleagues soon. But before I do that, let me introduce you to the program. So we have as you will see, we have two programs with several fields. So the counseling and clinical psychology program has two fields. The clinical and counseling psychology, MA and PhD, is here at OISE. And the clinical psychology program for the MA, PhD is at UTSC. We have a colleague who will talk to you about that soon. We have the second program here running under the counseling and clinical psychology and counseling program is the counseling psychology program, MED and EDT. And here we have two programs, basically, counseling and psychotherapy, MED, EDD, and the guidance and counseling stream. I want to introduce you to Professor Abby Goldstein, who will talk to you about the faculty that teach in this program, and after which we will introduce you to Professor Mike Bagby, who will talk to you about the program at UTSC.
Thank you, Roy. I am the coordinator for the counseling psychology program, which is the MED, EDD fields, and that includes the field in counseling psychology and psychotherapy, and also guidance and counseling. So those are the two fields that are in the counseling psychology program, and our breakout session will be here in the auditorium for people looking for additional information about that program. So the faculty here are faculty members in both the counseling and clinical psychology programs and the counseling psychology programs, and they include Mark Schneider, who you've already met, and Jean Watson, myself, Suzanne Stewart, Lana Sturmack, Neva Paran, and Todd Will is our staff liaison, Charles Chen and Roy Gillis are faculty members in the two programs, and Judy Silver is our director of clinical training, and she also coordinates the practicum and internships, and you'll have a chance to hear from her in the breakout sessions for both of our programs as she'll come and talk a little bit about those practica and internships in those groups. Okay, and just to let you know, you'll have a chance to hear more about faculty research interests during the breakout sessions. We'll get into more detail about that. So we'll have someone come up to talk a little bit about the UTSC program just briefly. Thank
you. My name is Michael Bagby, and I am the director of the University of Toronto Scarborough Clinical Program. We were just approved not long ago, about a year, and it's really a merger of sorts, if you will, with the OISE folks in the adult counseling and clinical area. We have a small faculty, including myself, full professor, and Zindel Siegel. Zindel and I recently, Zindel is also a full professor. We recently joined the faculty at UTSC. Both of us worked at CAMH for nearly 20 years, and we made the move to be involved in the new program at UTSC. Other faculty, and again, we'll have a session, a breakout session where Zindel and I will be meeting with students or applicants to talk about our interest. The other professors are Assistant Professor Amanda Elizik and Anthony Rocco. They're very recently hired faculty, but younger than Zindel and I. They're assistant professors. We have two associate professors who are long-standing faculty members at the University of Toronto Scarborough, Constantine Zagzanis and Mark Fournier. We also have a clinical lecturer who's a part of the graduate program, and her name is Jessica Deere. Again, during the breakout sessions, I can talk to you in more detail. Zindel and I can talk to you in more detail about our specific, about the specific interest areas of all the faculty I've just mentioned. Thank you.
Hi and welcome. I was sitting here thinking that you guys must all be completely confused with the ADD, PhD, MED, MA, PhD. So I'm here to confuse you further and talk to you about the Developmental Psychology and Education program. So we too have a number of degrees. We have an MED, an MA, and a PhD. And the program overall focuses on developmental psychology and human development and their implications for practice with children in applied settings. So broadly speaking, we are researchers who study human development with an emphasis on applications of developmental research. Our students are generally, in the MA and the PhD program, are generally gearing for research positions, leadership roles in school boards, public policy positions that have to do with education. So they get placed in a range of settings, but really focusing on research and applied research. The MED program, I don't know if we, it is designed to provide practitioners who work with kids with additional training and a deeper understanding of child development. I imagine that some of you may be interested in more than one of our programs. We often have that situation. And a lot of it has to do with what you sort of imagine yourself doing down the road. So our programs are more geared towards training researchers and having a deep understanding of child development. We have researchers doing work in a range of topics, from cognitive, social, emotional development, developmental neuroscience, a real emphasis on research methodologies, cognition and instruction, special education, and early childhood. I'd say those are the two biggest themes we have: special education and early childhood broadly, with a focus on early childhood education. And our MED focuses on those two streams. Like everybody else, I've got photos of my colleagues. We were joking that this is a little bit like a dating site, meetyourprofessor.com. And I think that's probably, more professors. And you will notice that many of us appear in multiple programs, and I think that's really a reflection of the collaborative nature of how we operate. I look forward to seeing you in the breakout sessions.
Okay, so I'm last but not least, and I'm going to try to make things marginally less confusing. Not least of which is that doesn't look like me, but I am Dr. Katrina Scott. So I'm chair of SCCP. So if you are, and the reason I'm going to try to make things a little bit less confusing is because I know that you need to choose the breakup groups that you have to go to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe SCCP, and then I'm going to speak to people who are here. How many people here are applying for a clinical program or a counseling program of some sort? Put your hands up. Okay, I'm going to help you figure out which breakout group you're going to need to go to, okay? So we in SCCP have an MA degree and a PhD degree. Like the other clinical programs, we have a scientist, scholar, practitioner model. So our aim is really around training in both the practice of psychology, research in psychology, and in scholarship in clinical psychology. SCCP is accredited by the Canadian Psychological Association. We're proud of this program. As Lana said, we've got great programs in this department and great instruction. So SCCP is the only program in Ontario where you can get trained to work as a school psychologist, and the only one in Canada that's accredited to offer combined training in both child clinical psychology and in school psychology. So in SCCP, you do have opportunity to conduct research with top Canadian researchers and to interact with others doing similarly high-level work. I love being part of this department. The fact that we have such a range of programs that we span teacher training, master's level education work, that we capture adult clinical and counseling and child clinical counseling, and we have a strong group of developmental researchers all in the department is a humongous strength. You know, I remember when I did my undergrad, I was in a really traditional psychology department, and I always loved the kind of talks that people gave, but sometimes they were on, bird vision. Here, they're all on child development, applied issues, questions that I'm really, really interested in. So today it was on cyberbullying and sexting and what are the legal and clinical reforms in that area. So we also offer clinical training at nationally recognized sites. So our students do placements at Sick Kids, at CAMH, at the Hinks Delcrest Treatment Center, at Integra, and at other places around. Graduates from our program become registered as professional psychologists, and they're employed in hospitals, universities, school boards, community health agencies, private practices, and other settings. And some of our graduates also become researchers or policymakers. So here are some of the people in the department. But now let me see if I can sort out a little bit farther. So in the department, so first of all, and I'm going to invite my colleagues to make sure that I say this right. So in the department, we have MA and PhD programs in clinical psychology 2. We have the counseling and clinical that has 2 fields so that you can actually be working here or you can be working at Scarborough. And you have the SCCP program, which is located here. In order to get into any of those programs, you need to have an undergraduate in psychology. And when you finish those programs, you're eligible for registration, or it gives you one step towards eligibility for registration with the College of Psychologists of Ontario. The College of Psychologists of Ontario is the regulatory body that controls the title of psychologist and psychological associate in the department. Now, what should I do? SCCP, or should I be looking at the counseling and clinical program? The difference here is one of focus on populations. Although both programs cover, to some extent, the full age range and have a developmental perspective, SCCP, the School and Child Clinical Psychology program, focuses more on children, youth, and families, and the counseling and clinical program focus more on young adults and older adolescents. Some of you may say, well, I'd like to do either one of those programs. Here's the reality of the situation. Both of the programs are extremely competitive. Both have many more applicants than they have spots. So for example, in SCCP, we typically have around 200 applicants for 7 spots or 7 or 8 spots a year. And I believe the counseling numbers have more. So you have more like 400 applicants for about the same number of spots. What that means is that when you say your first choice is SCCP, then we're going to consider you really strongly for SCCP. And if your second choice is counseling psychology, chances are you're not going to be as strongly considered, because honestly, there are lots and lots of really competitive applicants who've put counseling and clinical as their first choice. Do you understand what I mean? So at this point, right here, sitting in this room, and when you decide to go to your breakout groups, what I would do is I would make a strategy and say, what I really want, what is most interesting to me, what I really want to do is get education and do research and practice with children, youth, and families, or with older adolescents and adults, and choose the program accordingly, because it's almost never that if you have that listed as your second choice, you would be accepted into that program. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. Next question about what breakout group to go to. Do I want to go to the counseling and clinical breakout group, or do I want to go to the MA and PhD program, or to the MEd and EDD program? And there are 2 different spots, correct? Here, it has a couple different implications. One is thinking about what your undergrad preparation is. If you don't have an undergrad in psychology, you can't get into the MA PhD program. But you can apply to the MN program. And if you have some experience, that's really good for that program as well. So the MEd in counseling is really a 2-year program. And when you're done, there's a new College of Psychotherapists that is coming online, and it is working towards the kinds of requirements that you would need for that college. Okay? So does that clarify for people which program you should go to when in your breakout groups, at least a little bit? Okay. And also, I promise you at some point our website will make that a little clearer as well. So thank you very much for your attention.
So Just before I introduce representatives from the registrar's office, I just wanted to follow up on that. You're very welcome to go between groups this evening. I know from past experience that you are equivocating a little bit, many of you, about actually which program. Katrina outlined some of the different requirements. However, I know that people with a psychology degree are also often interested in the Masters of Education. It's a slightly different program in terms of outcome and your opportunities for employment. So please feel free to go among the groups this evening. So having introduced you to our programs, I'd now like to introduce Kim Holman and Gladys Lim from the Registrar's Office. They will just come up here and say some general remarks, followed with some Q&A. And don't forget that you will have more opportunity to pose some very specific questions to them later also in the breakout groups.
Hello, and welcome, as the slide says. I'm going to try to keep my presentation, as Lana said, pretty general and also fairly short, maybe 10 minutes or so, because I want to make sure that we do have time for questions and answers within the allocated space that we have. I'm going to start by saying, while near and dear to me, I realize that this information is not going to be the most exciting part of your evening with us today. But hopefully the information that I provide and share is helpful and valuable as you move through the application process. So as I was introduced, my name is Kim Holman, and I'm the Assistant Registrar for Graduate Admissions here at OISE. The Registrar's Office works with our 4 academic departments, taking the administrative side of applying, admission, registration, all the way through to graduation. Bottom line is we're an office that's here to help prospective students and students. Oops, sorry. Seems to be stuck on just one name. I will introduce, though, further my colleague Gladys Lim, and I'm going to force her to stand up so everyone sees her. As was mentioned earlier, we will be going to the breakout sessions, so if you don't have an opportunity to ask a question in the question and answer portion, we'll be around. So certainly, if questions arise there, we're happy to help. Fundamentally, all applicants are considered on their individual merits for any graduate program at the University of Toronto. We do establish some minimum admission requirements, of course. If you're applying to a master's degree, so an MEd or an MA, the minimum admission requirement is an appropriate bachelor's degree with high academic standing from a recognized university. An appropriate degree satisfies certain criteria. The issuing institution is recognized as having degree granting authority. The degree is a standard first entry degree that gives access to advanced research graduate education. Typically, for us, a 4-year honors degree that consists of at least 20 full courses, 20 full course equivalents. The degree that's appropriate is comparable to a University of Toronto admitting credential in terms of breadth and depth, and that includes a certain liberal arts and science content requirement. And the degree, where appropriate, has an affinity or a connection to the graduate program to which you're seeking admission. A little bit more about liberal arts and science content. We do establish a minimum requirement of 75% of the coursework of the degree is liberal arts and science or academically oriented courses. So sometimes we see degrees that are heavy on a professional component, a professional training component, a practical component, a studio component. Those sometimes are degrees that present some challenges for us because we're looking for at least 75% of the content of the degree to be traditional liberal arts and science, academically oriented courses. Some programs, I say on the screen there, a mid-B, some programs do require a higher average, and programs, in fact, in this department require a higher average. For example, the Counseling and Clinical Psychology MA requires an A-, as does the School and Child Clinical Psychology program. If you're here and you're thinking about applying to a doctoral program or a doctoral degree, PhD, an appropriate basis of admission is a master's degree with high academic standing, again from that recognized university. Some programs require higher than the B+ standard, such as the PhD in Counseling and Clinical Psychology, as well as School and Child Clinical Psychology. They both require an A- average. Counseling and Clinical Psychology, Developmental Psychology, and Education also offer an option within the PhD that's a flexible time. The flexible time PhD has the same admission requirements generally, but it has an additional layer, and that is that the applicant and student is in fact a practicing professional. So that means an active professional who's suitably engaged in professional work while they're undertaking their PhD research. So the research and the practice mutually inform and engage each other. The flexible time is a little bit misleading in terms of the terminology. Lots of people think that that's a part-time PhD, and it is not. There's a requirement that you be registered full-time for the first 4 years, even within a flexible time PhD option. And then after that, you can request and be approved for part-time registration. The OISE application, as most graduate applications are these days, based on the web. The website there is the main website that you'll find information specifically about applying, and the information is quite comprehensive, so I certainly encourage you to review the information before proceeding through the application process. OISE graduate programs operate under the umbrella of the University of Toronto School of Graduate Studies, SGS. So that includes the SGS online application system. So all applicants apply through the SGS online application system to be considered for admission to an OISE graduate program. You have pretty basic responsibilities when you apply online. You're going to input all of the relevant information, make sure that it's accurate, provide referee information so we can contact your referees, pay the application fee, which this year is $210. It facilitates uploading of your supporting documents, and then you'll monitor the status of your application through your online application system record. I can't stress enough to be really careful when you're applying online to make sure that you're choosing from the various pick lists the program that you truly want to apply to. University of Toronto has over 80 graduate units, so you certainly want to make sure that you choose OISE as the graduate unit, and that's Ontario Institute for Studies in Education, OISE in brackets. If you don't choose OISE, we simply don't see your application and we can't process it or consider it, and regrettably we have a few of those each year, so I always like to stress that. You have to pay the application fee in order for your application to be considered by the university. And there's a single application fee, although OISE for graduate programs allows you to choose up to 3 programs of study that you would list in order of preference. There's supporting documents that go along with an application for admission. Document descriptions are available on our website, the Graduate Admissions website, but also on departmental and program websites, so you certainly want to take a look at those. The required supporting documents basically are transcripts, letters of reference, a resume, and a statement of intent. A word about transcripts. Transcripts are the only document that's submitted in 2 different formats. It's an electronic format, and the system will give you detailed directions around that. And then an official paper transcript, received the old-fashioned way in a sealed envelope in our office with the stamp or the seal across the back of the envelope. Letters of reference are provided online by your designated referees. I can't stress enough to contact your referees well in advance of the application deadline to make sure that they're willing and able to provide you with letter of reference in a timely manner, and that letter of reference is going to be the strongest one that you can get. In this department, there's a couple of programs that require an additional 3rd letter of reference, and that's the Developmental Psychology and Education MA and PhD. And for both degrees in school and clinical child psychology, that 3rd letter of reference is required. December 2nd is the main deadline. So December 2nd is the main deadline that you need to submit your application online. And by submission, that's completing the application, including the payment of the application. That's when the university considers it officially submitted. And then the supporting documentation is uploaded, submitted thereafter. Very quickly, once you submit your application, you'll see online that it says documents pending. Obviously, as you submit the documents, as your referees submit their letters of reference, those documents will show as received. Our office is responsible for all the data around your application, and if you become a student, all the data associated with that. We complete an academic assessment of your credentials. We share the application records with departments where admissions committees review carefully all of those applications, carefully and thoroughly. They review your entire application. We don't screen out any applications. We forward them all to the department so long as they can be academically assessed. And we're also responsible in the registrar's office for issuing official results. So those typically are early April. A bit about academic assessment. And I should say that all of this information is available on the graduate admissions website. So for example, academic assessment is an FAQ on our website that provides you with some guidelines around how we complete an academic assessment. We can't provide an academic assessment in advance of an application. We need to wait for the official application. But if you're applying to a master's degree program, if your bachelor's degree is completed on a full-time basis, basically we average the final year. If your bachelor's degree is completed on a part-time basis, we average approximately the 5 most recent senior level courses or equivalent. And basically less than 4 full courses in that last year is considered by us to be part-time. If you're applying to a doctoral program, the basis of admission is the master's degree, an appropriate master's degree. And the way we calculate the average is to simply look at all of the courses completed over the entire master's degree. Some applicants are required to provide satisfactory evidence of English language proficiency, and that is generally required for applicants who are educated outside Canada whose primary language is not English. We establish acceptable tests like TOEFL, MELAB, IELTS, and acceptable minimum scores as well. All that information is on our website. We don't issue an offer of admission until that requirement is satisfied. If it's applicable, it has to be satisfied before we'll release that offer of admission to you. Always a topic of interest, and I think Lana and others alluded to it a bit, are stats. How many applications did you get? How many offers of admission did you present? Understandably, it's interesting, and it is published on our website. So the Registrar's Office website, on the main page, there's on the left-hand side a link to stats, and they're year to year. So you'll get some sense of the competition for whatever program of study each year. Always a topic of interest are fees, tuition fees. So this may be difficult to read or capture quickly. I do have some hard copies that I'll make available if you're interested to pick one up. The U of T official fees website is listed at the top there, and obviously fees are a necessary evil that come with undertaking graduate studies. Some helpful resources, obviously the OISE website, our registrar's office website. On the table there were the blue cards that included our website information, program website, department websites, and the OISE bulletin, which is available online. It's effectively the OISE Graduate Studies calendar. It has lots of important information about programs and policies and so on. If you end up needing assistance, we're happy to help. If you have technical issues, it's probably better to start with the School of Graduate Studies. So if you're having a problem with the online system, they're the best contact to make. If you have process issues, you're not quite sure about this letter or what you should do in this case, or you're absolutely welcome to contact us in the registrar's office. Again, we're here to help. I don't have a timer nor a watch, but I'm assuming we have some time for questions and answers. And since there's not a microphone, what I'll try to do is repeat the question so everyone can hear it. Yes. So the answer is that the question is that you're applying and your degree is in progress, whether it's a master's degree or a bachelor's degree. And in this specific case, it's a bachelor's degree. I'll start by just noting that you are a University of Toronto student. So as a U of T student, as a former student, if you've studied here at U of T after 1998, you don't have to submit an official paper transcript with your application. We have access to your official record, although you still have to submit an electronic transcript. In terms of a degree that's in progress, not at all an uncommon scenario. Lots of applicants apply with a degree in progress. Obviously, in terms of the assessment, we can't assess grades that aren't there. So when you apply in December, we won't have any grades for your fourth year. So we'll assess based on your third year, again, making a determination as to whether it's full-time or part-time. And then we'll indicate clearly to the department that the degree is in progress. They'll see that from the transcript as well. And then should you be offered admission, we would make the offer conditional upon completion of that bachelor's degree with a specified average. You wouldn't be able to actually commence and register in your new program until that condition is satisfied. Mm-hmm. It depends on, the question is how we select the courses in that third year. And it would be strictly based on whether it's part-time or full-time study, just like if it was in the fourth year. So if you've done at least 4 full courses in your third year, then we would take all of those courses and average them, regardless of course level or content. You're welcome. Yes. Yeah. The question is around the counseling and clinical psychology program, the field based at UTSC, Scarborough. So in that case, you would not be selecting the graduate unit OISE, you would be selecting the graduate unit from the picked list that I believe is clinical psychology. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, sure, yeah.
Katrina did a great job clarifying the overall program and sub-programs that exist. Let me just clarify, and I'm inspired that. Let me clarify between the OISE Counseling and Clinical and the UTSC clinical program. They're part of the same program. It's adult clinical psychology. At the OISE, in the OISE field, it's counseling and clinical, so you get training in both. But in the UTSC field, the University of Toronto Scarborough field, it's only clinical. So the best way to make a decision in terms of which field to apply to, counseling and clinical at OISE or UTSC clinical, is really by looking at the faculty interests. So go to the website, because usually a faculty member will, and an applicant will choose a field or a program, for that matter, any program across Canada based on the interests you have, and if there are faculty members there that are working in that area of interest. So just to give you an example, again, I didn't have the slides for the UTSC faculty, but at UTSC, some examples of our faculty interest are neuropsychology. There's 2 neuropsychologists there. That is one aspect that would make distinctive UTSC from the OISE field. Both fields do psychotherapy outcome research. Both fields are interested in psychodiagnosis, although they may approach it differently. And I think at both sites, there are work on CBT, mindfulness, psychological assessment in general. So the way to figure out what field you want to apply to is to really look at the faculty and the interest of the faculty and how well they match your interest and your aspirations. Both of the programs have a strong emphasis, as Katrina emphasized in the school and child clinical, we have a strong emphasis on producing scientist practitioners. You can come out of the program as a practitioner, but we're interested in training scientist practitioners, researchers, and clinicians. Okay? I hope that clarifies it and gives some sense of where you should go. Yeah, I understand it. When you apply, you just check off the field that you want to go to. You'll see the 2 fields in counseling and clinical, so it'll be the counseling and clinical field or the clinical psychology field. And they're each affiliated with the OISE site, if you will, and the UTSC site.
I believe the name of the graduate unit, if you're interested in the UTSC-based field, clinical psychology, you would select from the pick list Department of Psychological Clinical Science. So as opposed to OISE, that's where you'd go. Their website has lots of detailed information about their application process, how it's specific to them, and so you're certainly encouraged to take a look. Yes. So the question is, someone's interested in applying to a master's degree and they already have a master's degree. So in terms of the academic assessment, the basis of admission is always going to be the appropriate bachelor's degree. So we would assess that, looking for the average that's required, as well as if there's a particular major like psychology that's required. However, we would certainly include in our assessment separately the master's degree and include an average for that. It certainly speaks to your overall preparation to undertake a graduate program. And there may be, if for example, academic upgrading is an issue or the appropriate background is an issue in a bachelor's degree, it can be supplemented by master's degree study. Thesis-based masters versus non-thesis-based, in terms of our evaluation in the registrar's office, would be simply a notation that one includes a thesis and one does not. It may have a different evaluation in the department in the admissions committee, and that might be a good question for the breakout session. Sure. Sorry, it's hard to see. Go ahead. I'm sorry, you're going to have to speak up. I can't hear you. I'm so sorry, but I cannot hear you. So if your final year is full-time, so as long as it has at least 4 full course equivalents, it's considered full-time. If it has 18 full course equivalents, it's still considered full-time. And we would average all of the courses completed over that entire year, regardless of level or content. If your last year in your bachelor's degree is full-time, we do not pick and choose courses. We average across all of the courses completed in that full-time year. Sure. So the question is whether faculty members should be contacted prior to applying, and how, if you're applying to more than one program, that impacts your statement of intent. So I think the faculty question might be good for the breakout sessions. And all I would say is keep in mind that faculty have lots of demands on their time, so they might not be able to respond to individual queries, but that's a good question again for the breakout session. We always, generally we recommend in the statement of intent, if you are interested in working with a particular faculty member, you can certainly include their name. I think that's especially helpful at the doctoral level. And if you are applying to more than one program, you can only submit one set of supporting documentation. So one statement of intent, one resume. So within your statement of intent, we would suggest that you try to make things as clear as possible to the program committee members that will be reviewing your application. So you might, for example, want to have specifically identified, clearly headed sections within your one statement that says this portion is for this program, this portion is for that program. Are we okay on time, Lana? Okay. Someone from the back, yes? So the question is, in the application online, there's a field that's free form that asks you to indicate your research or your area of interest, your research interests. That's a field, it's not mandatory, but it is helpful, we believe, for departments because it results in when they see the application summary in the department, they'll see that section where things are highlighted. So that might be helpful for them in terms of easily recognizing the areas of interest that you're considering pursuing at the graduate level. Those would also be things, though, that you'd want to expand upon for sure in a statement of intent. And that also might be a question that's good for the breakout sessions. Yes. That's a good question. So in your final year in your bachelor's degree program, it was full-time. You took at least 4 full courses, but say one of those or 2 of those was not a graded course. It was simply pass-fail. So while the study in terms of registration is full-time, we don't have enough grades in order to consider it a full-time evaluation for academic assessment purposes. So we would evaluate and complete an assessment based on the equivalent of part-time study. So looking for the most recent senior level full courses, at least 5, that we would pick and choose from your 4th year and your 3rd year in all likelihood. Yes. Again, it's a question around your, yeah, I'm trying to summarize it. So the question is around a study that may not have the required, for example, psychology content to it. And there's also a Bachelor of Education that's been completed, and whether taking additional courses would be advisable. That might be a good question for the breakout sessions, because keep in mind, those are the faculty that are reviewing applications within the competitive process. I would say that for the MA in counseling and clinical psychology, I've been here a long time, and I don't think, ever accepted anyone that hasn't had an appropriate four-year bachelor's degree in psychology or has that psychology equivalent in terms of the course content. So if that's the program in which you're interested and you don't have that psychology preparation, you might want to consider undertaking upgrading study. In terms of a Bachelor of Education, typically a one-year B.Ed program, you're certainly required to submit transcripts of that study noted on your resume. It speaks to your overall preparation, but it's not part of the basis of admission, technically speaking, that we're looking for master's degree admission. Sorry. So the question is around a SHIRK application. I would say what SHIRK is, but I can't quite remember what it stands for. It's a graduate award, a special funding. Unfortunately, I'm not the person that can answer that question. Our office doesn't deal with graduate awards in that context. I can give you the name of an individual, though, that would be helpful. Her name is Wendy Mazeroll. Mauzerol, and she manages graduate funding, etc. So she's a good resource for those kinds of questions. You're welcome. Is there someone whose hand has been up for a long time? Because I think I'm being negligent here. Okay. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? The question is our policy around online courses. So in terms of the way we complete an academic assessment of an application, online courses are indistinguishable from in-person one-to-one face courses, if you will. We don't disregard them. We don't count them any differently. We don't weight them any differently. Yes. So the question is around working and volunteer experience when you're applying, and that's not a question for me either, sorry. It's not something we would evaluate in the registrar's office. It's a good question for the breakout session. It's not part of a basis of admission. It's not a standard that's set by the University of Toronto School of Graduate Studies. It's something a particular program may require and evaluate at their discretion. So it's really a question for them to address. I can take one more question. Yes. Yeah. That's a question around submitting a transcript, whether you're required to or not, and that's a very simple answer. It's yes. Transcripts are required for each and every post-secondary institution that you've attended. And I missed that one person, so I'm going to add that if that's okay. You're right there. Yes. Yes? So the question is, there's a service called the World Education Service that provides various information around evaluation of academic credentials. And while we don't accept their evaluation at face value, we complete our own evaluation specifically for graduate admission purposes. We do accept documentation received directly from WES as official, so you don't have to get it received or arrange for it to be sent directly from the issuing institution, the university. WES is acceptable.
Thank you very much. And again, Kim Holman and Gladys Lim will be available to you in your different groups. So at this point, if we could begin to move around a little bit, let me just remind you who's staying in here. In the auditorium, counseling psychology, MED degree, and EDD degree. Please note that in counseling and clinical psychology, the faculty may move around. The other program in counseling and clinical in the library. On the 5th floor, child study and education. On the 9th floor, both the developmental psychology in education and SCCP on the 9th floor. Thank you.